Hello and welcome to UI Chat from the Interface, the monthly show talking about everything Ubiquiti and networking. I'm your host Alex, and once again I'm joined by my co-host Evan McCann. Welcome, Evan.
Welcome. Hey, how have you been?
Not too bad. Feels like ages since we recorded. I know it was only like late December, but I don't know. January is one of those months where it feels like a very long month, and it feels like it's been a long time since we recorded. So.
Right, yeah. Holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and then I was on vacation last week, so yeah, it's been a weird month, and yeah, it seems like Ubiquiti took no breaks.
No, there's lots of stuff released. We both worked on the show notes. You've sort of fleshed it out as usual, and there's like a good solid 2 pages of stuff. So,
yeah,
we've got a lot of stuff to get through. An episode ago, or the episode before, I think we mentioned that the Crosswires episode was out. I think it was last episode, actually. We mentioned that we recorded an episode with James and Jay on their Crosswires podcast. James got that episode out on Monday this week, so that was the 25th today, whatever day that was, on Monday this week. He got the episode out. There's a link in the show notes in the description if you're watching this on YouTube as well. There's no video, it's just an audio version, but we had a good chat with those guys about everything UniFi. I think they called the episode UniFi Appreciation. So, all good. Again, there's a link down below to listen to that episode. So, all good. Just a very quick reminder before we get started. Thanks everyone who has been listening to this podcast. Me and Evan really look forward to coming back every month to provide our takes on the latest Ubiquiti updates. We would really appreciate it if you could review this show in your podcast app of choice, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anything else. If you're watching our gorgeous faces on YouTube, make sure to leave a comment and hit that like button. It really, really helps other people find this show. Without further ado, let's get back to the Ubiquiti news. Very first one is, I wrote a piece for my website, The Interface, on the 3rd of January, saying the Ubiquiti SolarPoint is back for 2024. So we've had a few mentions of the SolarPoint over the last few episodes, but Ubiquiti released 2.0 fully GA in the start of November, and then they've put the SolarPoint back in stock as of January, and it's got a redesigned hardware SKU. So you've got some new logos and things. It's back in stock in the EU as well as of yesterday, I believe. Not in stock in the UK just yet, but Ubiquiti are advising you can order it from the EU for the UK. But yeah, that's and then also there was some software released today as well, so 2.0.1 beta. So they're really back in it with the SolarPoint. Not so much the Solar Switch, but the SolarPoint. Definitely, I'm really excited for it. It's really good.
right. And this is the one that's like a charge controller. So basically, the idea is you hook it up to a battery and it monitors power levels. Like that's what this device does, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird seeing it's such an old hardware design in my mind. Like there's the EdgePoint R6, I think it's roughly 10 years old. It looks like it's the same enclosure, so they just slapped the new logo on and put it in stock. I'm glad they still offer this, but yeah, the entire journey this SolarPoint product has been on is interesting.
Yeah, you could write a book on all the ups and downs of it over the past few years. It's been out of stock for like 2 or 3 years now, and obviously it's back in stock now. But I've got one. I've made some videos for the HostIfy channel, 2 I think so far. I've got different builds I've done on the property where I live, and yeah, I've got a solar panel hooked up to it. There aren't any, as you said, like the hardware is the same. So one of the biggest complaints with stuff that Ubiquiti does with batteries is that they don't support lithium-ion batteries. It's only like lead-acid batteries and gel batteries, and lead-acid batteries don't have a as high capacity as lithium-ion, so they don't run down to zero like phone batteries or car batteries do. There's like a window of charge that they stick with, and that's it. And also, they're not as capable when it comes to cold temperatures. But again, it's really good. It's back in stock. There aren't, apart from what I mentioned with the batteries, there aren't any changes to the amount of wattage you can supply into it. No voltage improvements. It just is rebranded, sort of redesigned slightly, and back in stock. So, but judging by some of the response to it in the community forums when the software has been released, there's a relatively positive sort of feedback from Ubiquiti bringing this back, so that's really good.
Yeah,
and I mentioned there was 2.0.1 beta, so I've installed this on my SolarPoint this morning, and there isn't much changes. There's just a few bug fixes, like connection time to USB when the device reboots. There's some crash reporting now. There's some fixes for USB mobile, so very minor release, but it's good that they've got that out there. So
back and better than ever.
The next one, I noticed this. I think Cody tweeted out the other day that we've got this promotional thing for the UNVR. I was half expecting this not to be available in the UK, but it's actually available here as well, which is quite interesting. You basically get a free G4 Pro if you purchase a UNVR Pro. I think just the Pro, isn't it?
At least in the US, it's for both models. So there's no sale, but yeah, they just throw in a free camera. And I noticed, I don't know if it was the same time that this promo went live, but there's like a new storage configurator. So there's basically like you slide over how many cameras you have and how many days or hours of retention, like video recording, you want to be able to store. And then they'll throw in the hard drives that you need for that. It looks like they're just doing, I think, 8 terabytes. So yeah, I know before I think you could purchase or add on the hard drives, but now they're making it easy to say, hey, I have 10 cameras, I need 30 days of retention, give me the storage I need. And then, free G4 Pro to sweeten the deal.
Yeah, just checking the G4 Pro with the NVR Pro, and you get a G4 Bullet with the NVR, the standard one. So
okay,
not bad though. So it's $299 in the US for the NVR standard one. You get a G4 Bullet. I think G4 Bullet's about
150, give or take.
Yeah, it's not more. It's more than the G5, so it's 130 for the G5. And then for the G4 Bullet, it's $199. So you're basically getting a $200 camera free with a $300 NVR, which is really cool. So
yeah, that's how they hook you, and then you have to buy more cameras and spend more money on Ubiquiti gear. But yeah, it's a nice promo, and like it seems like they're doing more of these kind of things. Like I know the Black Friday sales were kind of a big deal. They had a lot of discounts on UDM Pro, the Dream Wall, a couple other devices. And I mean, maybe I'm just forgetting, but I don't remember them doing discounts and promo deals and these kind of things as much. So maybe they're just trying to encourage sales or just, get people to, get some new cameras, whatever they're doing. But they're probably going to be doing more of these kind of things like limited time sales and promotions just to spur people to upgrade.
Yeah, it might also be, because we've got the G5 Pro and the G5 Bullet, it might just getting rid of a few bits of stock they got lying around. Because as I mentioned, the G4 Bullet is more expensive, so why would you buy one? And
the G5 cameras are weird. Aren't a lot of them kind of cut down models?
Yeah.
Like I remember looking, they're a couple months out of date now probably, so I made Protect comparison charts, and I remember comparing the G4 models with the G5. It seems like a lot of them were, like they go from a gigabit port down to a 100 meg port, or they go from metal to plastic. Like it seems like it was a cost cutting rather than like a new generation with a better, image quality, whatever. So maybe they just have a glut of G4 Bullets and G4 Pros they want to get rid of, and that's why they're tacking more into the UNVR sales.
Yeah, in my experience, I've got a handful of G5 and G4 Bullets around, and the G5 Bullet has a significantly worse microphone in my experience. But the picture quality is just as good. But yeah, you are right. The certain aspects, like the metal construction, is different. The certain aspects of it feel a little bit cheaper. You get a 100 meg port rather than the gig port, which for a 2K camera isn't a problem really.
Right.
They're probably saving a little bit of money on the Ethernet port there, marginal, but it probably adds up, doesn't it? So, but I don't know. The only thing for me with the G5 is the microphone. It's just a bit dodgy. It feels like it's inside something. Like it's inside.
That's not good.
It's really, really, really odd. But
well, just buy a new UNVR and you'll get a better microphone with your free G4 camera.
Yeah. This one took me by surprise. I think Marcus, head of security at Ubiquiti, tweeted this yesterday, I believe. For Android at least, the new Protect application on Android now has the ability to specify what IP address your NVR is on, rather than going via the cloud broker. That's especially important when they have outages with the cloud broker that's hosted with AWS, and it means you can still be able to access your device. This is again locally to the controller only. You'd be able to do this for a while. So if you've got if you view your Protect cameras on a Mac or Windows PC, you can just type in the IP address and get to it. But it hasn't worked until now on a mobile phone, so it's really good to see.
Yeah, and Marcus specifically said Android's first, but this will be coming to iOS, I guess, in the next release. So I don't know, maybe the next week or two that'll be out. And I wonder if this is a reaction to, I think we covered it last time, the incident where they were showing the wrong notifications and the wrong devices for people that use the what's the official word? UniFi.ui.com. It's the cloud portal. Yeah. For that, and that was until this release, that was the only way to access your Protect recordings and cameras remotely over a phone. Even if you had a remote access VPN or anything, the only way was through their system. So maybe this is. So many people complained about that and kind of drew attention to this. I know people have complained about it for a long time, but I think that incident maybe spurred them to finally make this change. But it's great because now you're not relying on them, and for people that want to disable remote access, that was kind of, I think, the last thing that would really affect you. So now you can still use your mobile phone away from house as long as you have a VPN to get back.
Yeah, it's really good. I think probably the delay with the iOS stuff is that Apple take a little bit of time to approve things, even if they are beta ones. They have to go through test flights. So I'd imagine that's probably where the delay is, or they just haven't got around to doing the iOS one just yet. But yeah, I notice on UniFi Protect, I reckon 95% of the time you get the little green lightning bolt to say you are local to the device. If it picks up that you are local, it doesn't tend to work across VLANs and stuff because it wants to make sure it can actually get to it directly. But other than that, it's pretty good. But I'm glad they've done that, because there are some people that don't want to enable the cloud stuff, and it's good that, I think we mentioned before, that there aren't many, if at all, that systems that are entirely local based anymore, apart from UniFi Protect. So it's good that they sort of make it even more local if you want to get off it. So
yeah,
cool. This next one, I saw this the other day actually. The FCC filing for the Enterprise Fortress Gateway. I like the sound of that. It sounds something like from Star Wars or something. So you've put AKA the UDM Enterprise. Do you think this is a UDM, or do you think it's a UXG sort of device?
Yeah, I think that there's going to be both. It's kind of hard to tell, and the branding name of Enterprise Fortress Gateway, that's new to me. I don't know if we knew about that name before. At least that's what they put in the filing and the cover letter. Yeah. And they describe it as, there's 2 gigabit RJ45, 2 10 gigabit SFP plus, and then 2 25 gigabit SFP28 ports, which you'll find on like the really high end enterprise switches. Those are the fastest interfaces you can get in UniFi. Yeah. And so those 6 interfaces, I think it's going to be both the basis for a UDM enterprise, which I think we have seen before, and I think that might be what this is. And then I think that there's also going to be a UXG, so like no built-in controller version of that with the same hardware and the same interfaces. Okay. So I don't know what Enterprise Fortress Gateway is. It could be the UXG side, just because it's gateway. So either way, I think either this will be the UDM or the UXG, and we'll see the other one sometime soon. Yeah,
I got the feeling this might be the UXG version because of there's no switch built in.
Right, and I don't understand what they're doing with these names. We'll get to it here shortly, but the Swiss Army Knife Ultra. Oh yeah, it's just like I don't know, but yeah, Enterprise Fortress Gateway. It does sound cool. I think what really matters are the interfaces and the performance, and then obviously we don't know the price yet. Hopefully it's a reasonable price. Obviously it'll be more than the UDM Pro or UXG Pro, so maybe pushing $1,000 or somewhere around there. But for those that need speed, this will be a nice thing to have.
Yeah, definitely. And you said there's some remaining devices as well. Are these from the FCC filings? Or are these from I think you found some screenshots or images within the UniFi files a while back. So
yeah, so within the UniFi network application, there's a bunch of stuff that you can dig into and find little image files. So that's where we've gotten a lot of leaks. That's, I think, the first time we heard about the Express or the UXG Lite. And then WISP-Palooza was another one where they kind of pre-announced some products. So we kind of have these a couple different ways. There's the FCC and their code and all that, just to know that there's a bunch of other upcoming devices. Some of these might come out soon. Some of them might not be products at all, because they also do that, where they'll have a device and then not release it. But yeah, so there's the UXG Enterprise, the UDM Enterprise, and then there's the UDM Pro Max, which, judging by the image, it looks like it has at least 2 hard drive bays. So right, okay. 2 versus 1 on the UDM Pro and UDM SE. It might have the 25 gigabit ports or just more SFP slots. I'm not sure. It's hard to see. There's the UXG-B, which is now labeled as Gateway Max. So that's like the larger version of the UXG Lite. Probably more interfaces, more CPU power.
Okay, like a mid, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of in between the Lite and the Pro. They call it Gateway Max.
Okay.
Then there's the Express Mesh Point, which is like the UX, the Express, but I'm assuming that maybe no Ethernet interfaces. Maybe it's just a wireless.
Or maybe no screen.
Maybe no screen, maybe no interfaces, because it's probably just going to be a wireless repeater, the same way like the Beacon HD and the U6 extender are. They don't have Ethernet interfaces, so I'm assuming that's what that is going to be. There's the UDR Ultra, which is like the larger version of the Express or UXG Lite, or kind of the upgrade from the UDR.
Okay.
In that same similar little flat device style. There's 3 different models of Ultra Switch. I think they're all 8 interfaces. It looks like there's one without PoE, one with 60 watts, and one with 210 watts. So there's going to be 3 different 8-port PoE switches in the Ultra line. And then obviously the U7 Pro is out, but now there's going to be a U7 Enterprise. So of that list, who knows when they're coming or if they're coming, but that's all stuff that I would expect over the next couple months. So I don't think Ubiquiti is going to be slowing down on new hardware releases anytime soon.
No, I think with the Ultra stuff, I think it was they promoted it as it was more cheaper devices, but lots of flexibility in terms of its mounting and functionality. So that might be. I can't imagine what they'll do with the EDR. I have no idea with that one. But the switches potentially just more mounting options, more power options. So maybe it's maybe the Flex branding is sort of being replaced by the Ultra potentially. Weird marketing. Yeah.
It is strange. I think the UDR Ultra is definitely, of that long list, that's probably the one people are most interested in, because I know a lot of people look at the UDR or the older UDM, the base UDM, and they want something like that, but just a little bit more. Like they would want. I think the UDR can only run 1 or maybe now 2 applications in addition to
itself.
Network.
It's itself and one other. Yeah.
Right, but I thought that changed it too. Either way, it's limited. And if you turn on Suricata, it's limited to whatever, 600, 700 megabits per second. So something a little bit more powerful, but it's still kind of a small, cheaper all-in-one. I think the UDR Ultra will satisfy a lot of people that are looking at that. The Ultra switches, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. And then the other stuff, the high-end Enterprise and Pro Max, Gateway Max, I think those are kind of expected. So it'll be nice to have those more powerful options now that we're seeing the UXG Lite and the Express, the kind of low-end options.
Yeah, with that middle-range gateway, this was probably back in like 2016, 2017 era of Ubiquiti when we had one of the guys who was managing UniFi stuff was called Brandon, and he used to talk about a lot of the stuff that was coming soon. I was actually in the alpha group at one point, but I remember there was this product talked about called the USG HD, and this was exactly what this was going to be. This was going to be an EdgeRouter 4 or EdgeRouter 6, that sort of format, but a USG. It was going to be sort of in between the USG and the USG Pro. It's nice to see them going back, and then like with the gateway, the big gateway version they're going to do as well. Do you remember that there was this XG USG as well that was on sale for maybe 9 months and got pulled, and there was some weird issues with it. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, that was a weird device, and that's why. Yeah, I don't know that all of these are going to be real products. It's just we've seen people leak details about these kind of things and seen references to them, so it's possible none of them come out, but it's possible all of them do. So I would expect most of these to come out, and yeah, I think as crowded and overwhelming as their lineup can be, I think these all kind of have their spot. So
yeah,
it'd be nice to have more options for gateways and stuff like that.
Yeah, this isn't in the show notes, but there's a very side note because we're talking about routing. Chris, I can't pronounce his last name. Chris Buechler or Buechler, I can't remember, but he co-founded pfSense, joined Ubiquiti a while back. Did you see about a week ago that he left Ubiquiti and has now joined Alta Labs? And what's quite interesting is they seem to have got a few ex-Ubiquiti employees. So famously, Matt Hardy, who used to be like head of customer something or other at Ubiquiti, is now working at Alta Labs. So they've sort of got like an ex-Ubiquiti sort of thing going on. So he's interestingly joined their team. I think he left Ubiquiti, judging by his LinkedIn, in November. So he's been sat around for a few months, I guess, joining Alta Labs, so it's quite interesting. But you have to see what comes of that. Actually, left Ubiquiti in September, so he's had from September to January, sort of out of the game a little bit. But he was at Ubiquiti for 7 years, and I'm guessing he helped do the UXG stuff, as delayed as that was in the end. But it's interesting to see that he's now left. I guess he's achieved what he wanted to achieve.
I did see that, and I don't know. I didn't hear too much about him before. I didn't realize he's the founder or co-founder of pfSense, or he was deeply involved with pfSense.
Yeah.
And then obviously at Ubiquiti for 6-7 years, whatever it was.
Yep.
And yeah, I know Alta Labs they've been public saying we're working on, I think more, they have a couple switches, they're looking at more switches, and then eventually I think their own gateways, so.
That's right,
Makes sense to hire the guy that has done that. And yeah, Alta Labs in general is really interesting how they do kind of just seem to be a group of I don't think they're all ex-Ubiquiti, but a lot of the core members of that company are, and they're doing some interesting stuff, so good for them for hiring the right guy to do that, and I'll be curious what they release. Yeah.
Fantastic. There were some upcoming changes to the Ubiquiti 2FA system that they announced. This is really good for security. I think this was Marcus again that announced this the other day, and there's also a community post as well. As of July 2024, they are going to be force enabling or sort of mandating that MFA or 2FA is enabled on everyone's accounts. So that's either that be their recommended UI Verify, that dedicated app, but you can use any sort of TOTP system, like the QR code and generating some codes. And then what happens is on July 22nd, they'll force enable it. If you haven't enabled anything by then, they'll just set up your email address as a secondary backup. That will be your that'll be your form of MFA from that going forward. It's interesting. There were some people that I think Chris Sherwood was saying it'd be good if they did passkeys. I didn't really understand passkeys when Apple announced it or announced support for it either last year or the year before. But since then, like a lot of the stuff I've been using, like eBay, I think some other apps I've been using as well, all use passkeys. So you just use Touch ID or whatever to sign into your account. That would be quite a good addition. I'd imagine that might get a bit messy with supporting it on the Dream machines and signing in that way, but really good that they're sort of mandating, especially with the security issues they've had over the years. It's just another line of defense, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad that they're mandating it. I've had it on for as long as I can remember, probably as long as it's been an option, and everyone should, so it's good that they're enforcing it. I'm curious about passkeys. I don't know too much about that. And I think Chris was asking about like hardware. Like I know of the YubiKey, which is like a little USB stick, basically to prove your identity that way with a physical device. But yeah, I think they have enough options between email, UI Verify, what was it, TOTP, whatever.
Yeah, time-based
acronym is. Yeah, so they have plenty of options, and they'll probably add more. And I'm glad that they're enforcing it, because everyone, especially if you're listening to this, you should have 2FA on. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, passkeys are interesting. I don't know the technicalities of how it's working behind the scenes, but it's essentially like, I think it's a token. So you can, it's basically like passwordless sign-in, and it uses your iCloud password manager, and it's also open source. So I think Microsoft Edge supports it. I think Chrome supports it. That was the other thing I was going to mention. Google accounts support it now as well. So you can just use Touch ID or whatever biometrics you've got on your machine or phone. It signs you on automatically, and somehow securely it's all synced. And it's quite interesting that quite quickly that platforms like Apple and Microsoft have adopted support for it, and then a lot of websites have now got support for it as well. I think X has just announced support for it in the US as of yesterday, I think. Interesting, not worldwide, just US only. But it's good to see that it's rolling out, because it's I think someone mentioned it's also phishing proof, because it doesn't use somehow it's phishing proof. I'm not entirely sure how, but it looks a next generation of using passwords online, so it's really good.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the technical details.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So I'll leave that to other people. But I do know, it's basically you can prove your identity rather than hopefully a long random string of text as a password.
So, yeah.
You're proving it through, biometrics. So either your hardware or your finger going on a fingerprint sensor or face scan, whatever.
Yep.
And then, magic happens behind the scene and you get securely logged in. So I'm happy to see anything to make passwords less of the main point of securing an account.
Yeah. Cool. That's all the overview of the news. We're going to now get onto the hardware section and the software sections. We've got dedicated sections in this episode. The first of the many products of hardware they've announced is the very first Ultra device. As I mentioned earlier in the show, the Ultra is their sort of lower end range of devices. Weird naming, but it is what it is. This one is the UK Ultra. So when I first saw that announced, I was like, what? They're announcing something specifically for the UK, but no, it's just like a weird SKU for the device. Swiss Army Knife Ultra. You've got one. I've got one in a box. I'm yet to do a video on, but I think I haven't even opened it. But I think you've had a play around with the one you've got. It's yeah.
Besides, I mean, it's a unique form factor.
Oh yeah.
I have the box somewhere. I don't know. It's off to the side. But yeah, so it's a very strange, just naming wise and product wise. And it is, if you look at, they have a help page about which generation of access point you have.
Okay.
And I think the first ones are all retired. I think the second gen is like the AC Lite, the AC Pro, and this is a second generation. So this is just it's like the AC mesh in like a different enclosure is basically my understanding. So it has kind of the same, it's a Wi-Fi 5 access point. It has basically the same, if not identical, radio specifications to the AC mesh, which is still for sale, but that's a AC Wave 1 several year old access point, and this is a brand new device with the same configuration radio wise, and it's I think the most interesting part of it, besides the weird name, are the accessories. So they showed off the little dock you can put it in. I don't know if we've seen that released yet, but that's going to be basically like an external antenna or like a kind of like a docking station for it. And they are going to do an external antenna attachment that sits on the front, and it's kind of like the AC mesh and the, what is it, UMAD?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's the external antenna for the AC mesh. So it's going to be more directional, so that'll be good for kind of like outdoor long distance coverage. So it's kind of a bummer it's not Wi-Fi 6. I know a lot of people complain about that, and we're making jokes about that because it's Ultra, which sounds like it's a fancy new high-end thing, but it's actually kind of an old product in a new package. But the accessories are probably the most interesting part of it.
Yeah, like you could liken it to SE, like with what DJI do or Apple do with the iPhone. Like it's just sort of, it's, you know what I mean. They got the bunny ear. I call them bunny ear antennas, but you got the little antenna things that go on the top. They look identical to the UAP AC mesh ones. You can mount it on a wall, a ceiling, and a little dock thing. I'll put some pictures on screen and stuff, and a pole and whatever. It's all weatherproof and stuff. What's weird is when it was announced, it was $109, and about a day later it was dropped to $89, which was quite funny. So they sort of dropped the price within a day of launching it.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that. I think for $89, I mean $20, unless you're buying these in bulk, that's not a huge difference. But yeah, I think $89 is probably the more appropriate price. Maybe they saw the initial reaction of like Wi-Fi 5, like what, and then maybe they just did that.
But it may have been a typo. I don't know. But yeah,
maybe. So
yeah, so it's you say it's like the AC mesh, sort of in a different skin, kind of. It's kind of worse than it because it's $10 cheaper, which is for a start. This says the AC mesh can do 250 devices at 1,500 foot squared. And then the Swiss Army one can do 1,250 foot squared with 200 devices, so it's ever so slightly worse. But I don't know. I can't think of a scenario where this would be quite useful. I don't know why you would pick it over something else.
That to me, it's they're maybe with that weird branding, they're trying to say it's flexible. You can use it in different areas. Like you could use it indoors, outdoors.
Yeah, that's true.
With the accessory, like I know for a lot of people that are trying to cover a backyard, they'll have either a U6 mesh or an AC mesh or an AC mesh Pro. This would be another option, especially if you're trying to do with the external antenna or the any other antenna. just long distance outdoor coverage. But there's now 3 or 4 different options for that, and this is kind of overlaps with the other one, so it's all very strange.
Yeah, I can see it's just a new AC mesh then in that case. So I've used the UMAD before, and getting that thing mounted and getting the little pigtail coax leads not to be bent or in a straight line and getting everything mounted correctly, a little bit awkward. I can imagine if you're trying to feed a backyard, that looks a bit in your face. So having it all in one place is a bit nicer. And then also, what's quite useful about having the directional antenna is if you've got a room that's behind the AP that's outside, and it's not directional, you might sort of get leak inside the building, and then you get devices try and hop onto it. So that is a useful thing to having a directional antenna, and it's a bit of a cleaner design. Yeah, in my opinion, they should have just renamed. This was like the new AC mesh, in my opinion, but they don't tend to do that, do they? They don't tend to have a new version of an existing name. It's always has to be a new name. So, yeah,
and that, like, it'd be nice if this was obviously at a minimum Wi-Fi 6, but this is 802.11 AC, Wi-Fi 5. For the areas this is probably going to be used, like if you're in your backyard 50 feet away from your AP, you're not going to be getting the top end Wi-Fi 6 speeds anyway, so it's probably not a big deal. But it's still it's disappointing to see a new product with such an old standard, especially because they literally label it second generation, so it fits in with all the other AC stuff they have. So
yeah, I hadn't noticed that.
Maybe we'll see a UK Ultra Plus with Wi-Fi 6 or something. Who knows?
Yeah, and then the second generation Wi-Fi 6 stuff, I think Wi-Fi AC stuff came out in like 2016. I think that's when the first stuff of that was launched. So a little while ago now. So yeah, it's strange, but I'm yet to open mine, yet to do a video on it, so I'll do that at some point. There's some, again, like I love to focus on the UISP side of Ubiquiti because it is sort of a little bit niche now, but it's always interesting when there's a new line or something launched within that space. This is the UISP Switch Plus. It's got a matching little house for it as well with the Box Plus. Sort of outdoor enclosure for it, which looks quite nice. And this one is interesting. It's got 4 Ethernet ports and 4 SFP Plus ports. And again, this would be... I was trying to rack my brains about what scenario, but one thing I could think of was the UISP Wave AP. That's got SFP uplink and also Ethernet for power. This will be absolutely perfect. You could run 2 cables up to the tower. Yeah, you could in theory. You could run 2 cables up, one for power, one for uplink with SFP, and you can power 3 UISP Wave APs off this. So that's really good. Looks quite nice as well.
Yeah, so the 4 Ethernet ports are 2.5 gig,
Yep.
which is nice to see. The UISP switch, the non-plus, the basic version, it's really cheap, really small, and I think it's 6 or 8 gigabit. Yeah, it's 8 gigabit ports in a single 1 gig SFP backhaul.
Yeah.
So the Switch Plus, it's over twice the price. It's $399, but you get those 4 2.5 gig ports and the 4 10 gig SFP, so you could use that for backhaul. Or I know a lot of high end radios. You said some of the Wave APs, they have 10 gig SFP.
They do. Look. Yes, yeah. I believe the Wave AP does. Yes, it does. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, because I think those can get well beyond 2.5 gigs of throughput realistically, especially over a short link.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have 10 gig backhaul and 10 gig to your AP for the first time. And I wonder if there's any other. I'm still waiting for like 6 gig 6 gigahertz point to multipoint and point to point radios. They do this. They're really leaned into the 60 gigahertz, but they haven't really done like Wi-Fi 6E 6 gigahertz, which I know like Cambium and a lot of others have.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll see more of that. But yeah, I'm the same way. I'm always happy to see some movement on the UISP side, and this kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, in terms of other devices, you've got the AirFiber 60XR, XG, and HD. Those all are backhaul devices, and they take 10 gig SFP in. So you could, in theory, have one cable going up from your power to this box, the UISP Box Plus, have one backhaul, and then 3 APs if you want to do that. Sort of a very simple setup. And it'll be all enclosed or not so much long runs and stuff. Be quite a nice sort of small enclosure. And it looks like when you buy the USB Box Plus, it comes with a fiber strain relief kit, and that's another standalone product that Ubiquiti have got as well. It's sort of like a little loopy thing that you run the fiber cable through to sort of take the strain, and it sort of has less strain on because obviously fiber cables are glass. So
yeah, and it works with the transport power, which
yes,
yeah, the places I see this being used on, or at least in my experience as a WISP, like you need to have DC power input. You need some sort of battery backup solution. Transport kind of solves that. So it's nice that they're kind of building out that ecosystem. And I think for a little small install with a couple radios on a roof or wherever you're putting them, this is a nice option to consider.
Oh yeah, and then I wish they had this when I was working at the WISP, because there's getting notifications from the system. You've got the USP Power Pro as well. So this would be like your bigger installs, USB power for like a micro pop sort of thing. And you can power this. I think the little one's got a lithium-ion battery built in. And then, yeah, you can also have a 24-volt lead acid on as well. Yeah, it's got a 115 watt-hour lithium-ion battery. So there's lots of like wispy stuff that still exists within Ubiquiti, which is really nice. But yeah, I love the look of that. I've yet to see any WISPs use the new stuff, but yeah, I'd imagine that especially in the US, there's loads of WISPs, way more than there are in the UK. So it's really good options for that. So that's awesome. This next one, this one was kind of leaked accidentally by Chris. I think he published he timed a blog post by accident, and the blog post he had launched this about a week or two before it should have done. Not a massive issue, but this is the first H2.11 BE, and I think the same day this was announced, the Wi-Fi Alliance signed off the IEEE standard for this as well. So Wi-Fi 7, H2.11 BE. This is I think TP-Link have launched. I think we talked about this before. Like, don't buy anything that hasn't been certified because you're not too sure what's going to happen to it. Especially with like stuff we learned from in 2013 with AC, there was stuff coming out before the thing had been signed off, and you got some sort of what's the word for it? Sort of devices that aren't quite up to spec, and then they're just stuck with it. So this one looks interesting. You've got one as well. I haven't been able to order one just yet in the UK, but you've got a U7 Pro as well, which is quite cool. Yeah,
Wi-Fi 7. So yeah, I mean the same thing happened with Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, okay. Wi-Fi 5. Yeah. The way, the 802.11 committee kind of comes together, and they're the ones that make the standard. Mm-hmm. So they go through a long multi-year process where they kind of have draft revisions of this. And what always happens is the like Qualcomm's, MediaTek's, the like underlying component people start making radios based off that first draft. And then they go from there. So then there's usually multiple drafts, and Qualcomm keeps kind of making more and more chips. And then eventually, like I know TP-Link was very early on that train, where I think they were one of the first. It was early last year, I want to say early 2023, where they said, "Hey, we have Wi-Fi 7 stuff based off the draft." But yes, now on the day they launched the U7 Pro, the Wi-Fi Alliance, they're the kind of third party that certifies compatibility between devices. They started certifying Wi-Fi 7 devices, and that was the day they launched that. The Wi-Fi 7 draft, or the Wi-Fi 7 standard, still isn't finalized. They're I think they're on like draft 4 or 5, and by then, like most things are decided. They're still probably fighting about usually they argue about like what things are mandatory versus optional. Okay. But we know what the standard is. You can start building hardware because there's long lead times there. Yep. So Qualcomm's been making Wi-Fi 7 stuff for probably 2 years, and maybe a few features are missing. And there might be something on the U7 Pro just because it was probably developed during that draft. There might be something different with later Wi-Fi 7 devices, but we're starting to see a lot of networking side devices. We haven't seen a lot of client side devices. So I know I was trying to buy like a PCIe card to start testing Wi-Fi 7. I won't bore you with the details, but Intel is making that a little bit difficult, and it's not really easy to get like a cell phone with Wi-Fi 7 in it or all that. That'll probably be all this year. But yeah, now we have a Wi-Fi 7 AP if you want to get ready for when Wi-Fi 7 devices are more common.
Yeah, there's a few things that haven't come just yet. So I think some people are disappointed that this doesn't have this only has 2x2 MIMO. But personally, I've noticed that some devices from Apple, for example, they used to have 3x3, 4x4 MIMO, and they've gone away from that just into 2x2. I think just judging from what companies are doing, I think it's less important, possibly. Potentially, I'm not 100% sure, but I'd imagine that they're saving that for the enterprise stuff. But I haven't seen many devices lately that have any more than 2x2 MIMO, personally. So
there's still advantages to having more spatial streams on the AP side. Most notably, like beamforming and aggregate throughput. So yes, your single client connection to your single laptop or single phone, it'll only be a 2x2, 2 send and 2 receive radios active at the same time. But when you have like a 4x4 AP, like the U6 Enterprise or U6 Pro, those can help performance in more ways than just a faster speed test result on your single device. I saw so many people say this is a disappointing device. It only it is a tri radio, so it does have a 2.4, a 5, and a 6 gigahertz radio, but each is only 2 spatial streams, so it's 2x2 for all 3 of those. And that is actually my kind of counter argument of that is that's in line with what the Pro is. So if you look at the U6 Pro, it's 6 spatial streams. It's just a 2x2, 2.4, and a 4x4, 5 gigahertz. So this adds all the spectrum that comes with 6 gigahertz. It adds a whole third radio for you to connect to. It's just 6 spatial streams spread over 3 radios rather than 2. So we'll see I'm sure soon we'll see a U7 Enterprise, and that'll satisfy the people that say 2x2 and not good enough. But I think I think it's $30 more than the U6 Enterprise.
I think so.
It adds 6 gigahertz. It adds everything that comes with the Wi-Fi 7 standard, which is like higher data rates, wider channels, multi-link capability. I know they mentioned that's coming in a future software update. So there's a lot of good things, and I think it's a appropriate name and appropriate price, even though a lot of people saw it and was like, it's only 2x2, not good enough.
Yeah, that multi-link operation MLO is quite interesting. It basically means that a device can send and receive on, usually they'd send and receive on one frequency, so 5 gigahertz or 2 gigahertz. Now they can send on 5 and receive on 2.4 if there's any weird interference, because sometimes they're not so much in Wi-Fi, but more about in point-to-point stuff, but there might be a different Wi-Fi environment where the client is compared to where the AP is, so that's quite cool. I can see that being really, really good for very quite dense environments where there might be a lot of interference in one particular area of the office or something. So that's quite cool. They said that's coming in February, so not too long for that one. So all good.
Yeah, multi-link is probably the most exciting thing for me about Wi-Fi 7. And yeah, I'm still trying to like read through white papers and understand it all, but from what I understand, like that's the big feature of Wi-Fi 7. That's one of the big reasons to consider spending the extra $30.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you mentioned, there aren't many devices. Well, there's not many really that support Wi-Fi 7 at a client's perspective. So you're not going to get anything from upgrading from U6 Pro to U7 Pro at all. So not at the moment, anyway. So cool. This next one is Ubiquiti have got their own little rack, like Ubiquiti branded mini rack. It's cost $2.99. You can stack in various stuff, and they've announced this little $69 option thing that will allow you to stack 2 mini racks together to form one big one. And I got a little picture down here. It looks like something you'd find in a chef's kitchen or something, but those like table things. But yeah, that's quite interesting. Again, the use case of this potentially, I couldn't imagine many reasons to get it possibly over a proper permanent installation. I don't understand why you need 12 devices on wheels, but I'm sure there's a reason for it. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, the Toolless mini rack, the whole gimmick is that it's toolless. Like you can just it kind of looks like you could slide in like a baking tray.
Yeah.
So I know like at like Subway, at least they have like, that's how they make their bread. They just have those baking trays slide in. So it almost literally looks like that. Like you get 6 U's and a little cabinet on wheels. The the idea of buying this extender kit and then adding 6 more U, at that point, it's what, $700 or something? Like, yeah. I'd rather have a cabinet from a different vendor. There's way more variety, and like, to me, I'd want it to be enclosed. This is just totally, there's no dust filtering, there's no protection of the device. They're just literally sitting there. So it's for a narrow use case. If you want something that looks really nice, like this does look pretty, and if you need more than 6U, there you go. But I think in general, this is only going to satisfy a very specific person looking for a very specific thing, and you'll probably have better luck looking for a rack from someone else and sticking your gear in there.
But yeah, other than that, it'll, as you said, it'll all match with other stuff. So you got the LCD panels, you got the patch panels are all branded, sort of color match to everything else. It's, if you're after that aesthetic sort of thing, then yeah, go for it. And it's, yeah, you're all right. It'd be like $600 plus nearly $700, yeah, for the whole thing, which seems like quite a bit. So,
but it looks awesome.
Yeah, that's what that matters.
Right.
This next one is, I've labelled this as the big boy. It's the USP-PDU-HD, and this is it's a 32. I think it's a 32U. Is that right? I think I put the wrong link in there. Power distribution, high density. Yes, 36U racks and toilet supports. It goes down the length of a rack, like a proper permanent installation, and it's got 24 AC ports that are all remotely resettable, 4 USB-C ports, and it looks like it's got 2 different circuits on it, so you can power it separately twice, and then you can reset different circuits. I believe it's $1,000 in the US. It's not available in the UK because it's got the North American plugs on there, and at the moment Ubiquiti haven't expanded their power solutions outside of the US and Canada, so it's interesting. I can see this being quite useful, actually. If you've got this on data center and want to reset stuff, at the moment the market for sort of resettable power outlets is a little bit weird. There's some interesting products I found out there over the years. It's not quite as seamless as what Ubiquiti would offer, but this is quite cool, to be honest.
Yeah, and of course not compatible with the rack we just talked about, because it's. No. I think it mentions like 36 U's of space, meant to be like on a floor to ceiling like 42U big cabinet. Yeah. So you'd have to buy your cabinet from someone else, but then you could use this. The remote control outlets that you can toggle on and off. Pretty interesting. Then they have USB-C power out. Mm-hmm. I guess for Ubiquiti has several devices that you could power via USB-C, so you could power it there. And then they have a bunch of Ethernet interfaces and a little touchscreen like they have on the switches in the UDM Pro. So yeah, it's very fits the aesthetic of silver and fancy and nice. But yeah, I think there's some actual use cases there that this would be really handy for. There's obviously other vendors that have more variety for power input, power output, but having 24 controllable outlets and all of the other stuff that's on here, pretty nice.
Yeah, they got 4 Ethernet ports, one's for management, and they've got 3 that are labelled for network redundancy. So if you go on the store page and click on build features, they got like a zoomed in version of the rack. I think this is for the high availability stuff they're working on. Personally, they haven't mentioned anything else in the spec sheet apart from just in this picture that says network redundancy, but I think this will play nicely into their high availability combination router stuff. They're going to do it sometime.
Yeah, like if you have 2 UDM, I think it's UDM Pro and UDM SE are the only 2 maybe that have the shadow mode, so you have 2 physical pieces of hardware there and 1 cable from each. That would be what those are for, I would think.
Yeah, I think this is more the shadow mode is like you have to do a manual swap. I think this is more about, they announced it with the PDU-Pro. It's more about high availability. So with that one in the video, they said that you plug the WAN connection into the PDU-Pro, and then you have 2 outlets to the 2 Dream machines, and it should, in theory, have high availability. That isn't anywhere near any software release or anything. They haven't talked about it apart from a little video clip they released a while back and the spec sheet for the PDU-Pro. I'd imagine that's what that's for. They're probably just working on it. That'll come later, I'd imagine. So.
Yeah, it's weird that it'll act as like kind of like a little switch basically in front of your 2 firewalls. And And yeah, I would assume shadow mode is going to expand, because right now it's only a manual cable swap, but eventually they're going to have basically kind of load balancing or automated failover, I would assume. So
I'd hope so.
This is another piece to that puzzle.
Yeah, definitely. I think we discussed it maybe November or December episode. I think it was December. May even before that they announced UniFi Talk for the UK. So this was it's November. It was 2.2.0. This was back in when was this? This was 14th of November. It was released a beta with UK support initially, and then just in 9th of January they announced 2.2.3, and this is officially brought UK support for UniFi Talk to GA, which is really cool. I've had a little chance to play around with it. We're missing core porting at the moment, but it has got advanced core routing, which will make it work with Starlink a lot better and over 5G and stuff. But yeah, just waiting on the core number porting to come first, and I'll probably move my stuff over to it. So it's all good.
Yeah, weird they launched without call porting. That seems kind of like a pretty core thing that people are going to be looking for. But yeah, it's great to see finally UK support, so you can switch to it.
Yeah. I don't know many residential people who are using landline proper phones anymore. But in businesses they are, because they want that number to ring and stuff. And generally they want that number to be, well, small businesses anyway, they want that number they've had for ages to be retained. Maybe new businesses that are setting up a new phone system from scratch, then yeah, that's perfect, because they can pick a number from the list and buy it there. And all the different counties in the UK you can choose one from. But yeah, number porting, I'd imagine there's some sort of infrastructure and things to take place, because you've got to have those communication channels between existing providers in the country and also Ubiquiti as well, so I'd imagine that'll come up at some point. But yeah, they haven't said when, but it says as soon as possible. So, but other than that, it all looks pretty good. Core performance is quite good. There's a latency ticker on here, and the latency seems pretty good in terms of the nearest one. The call quality is a bit interesting. I did some test calls and took some the recording feature, listened to them back. It sounded very quiet, and that was with the Flex phone and the ATA. So I've got this deck phone that's compatible with ATA. It just seems a bit off, so I'd imagine that's being worked on. But other than that, it's good to see it. And now we've got UniFi Talk in the UK, Canada, and the USA. So that's really good. So this next one is UniFi OS 3.2.9, and it's got the support for the shadow mode, which you mentioned just now. And this is going to be this is out right now. And yeah, the shadow mode looks pretty interesting, but there's some other features as well, like SFP compatibility. They don't have an EEP ROM, not sure what that is, but yeah, there's some nice features in there, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, nice bug fix. And then the other one, ever since the Express was released, it was released with, oh good lord, 3.1 dot something.
Okay.
All the features that came with 3.2 weren't on the Express at launch, and I was looking for a while to see a 3.2 or any sort of update for the Express, and finally we got that. We got early access release of 3.2.5. So this is the first time in over 2 months since launch that we're seeing a software update, and that brings all the stuff that has that's part of 3.2, which is for the Express. It's IGMP proxy, VLAN magic, DNS shield, hostname support for IPsec site to site, VPNs, and of course a bunch of bug fixes. So yeah, I'm still I didn't really I'm kind of like halfway finished on my Express review. I don't know if I'll finish it or not, but this is a nice thing to have. And I'll be testing this out, but it's good to see that finally we have a 3.2 release for the Express.
Yeah, I did try and order a UniFi Express a little while ago, and it said no, I couldn't. But now it's recommending I order it from the EU instead, which I might do actually. So yeah, I might do that instead. We've also got an EA release of UXG 3.2.11. So this is for UXG Lite and a UXG Pro. This is brought again some of the features you just mentioned, like DNS shield. For the UXG devices, loop protection, which we've mentioned before on the show as well. Some stability features, again, hostname support, and they've updated Suricata to 6.0.12, and lots of other bug fixes which you can find in the release notes as well. So that's really good to see them marching on with the UXG stuff. When I saw this added to the show notes, I forgot that we didn't mention it, because but it's EdgeRouter 3.0.0. We mentioned the EdgeRouter 3 sort of GUI revamp, I think, last episode. This is a RC.6 release. Lots of little fixes in here. I have noticed with the, I don't know if you've tried it, you can get to the local GUI of the EdgeRouter from UISP directly. It works with the one I'm trying to use, but it doesn't load in the UI properly. Like, it loads in about 50% of the way, and none of the things move on the screen. I don't know if you've seen that with yours, but
I put this one and then the UISP Router 5.0.0 preview.
Yeah.
But those are kind of tied together. I think the first RC or the early RC for the EdgeRouter was maybe November, December, but they have a new build, and I tried it and had a few. I didn't have the same issue you had with the UI not loading, but there was a couple weird things. But just the fact that they're, hopefully 3.0.0 will come out soon. This is still even before EA. I think they're saying or is it a release candidate? But either way, 3.0.0 is not finished, and the UISP Router 5.0.0, there's a lot of zeros. It kind of builds the same features in, where it adds a local web interface, and it has IPsec and WireGuard VPNs, which I think is long overdue, because the UISP Router is very kind of feature poor in comparison to the EdgeRouter. But I'm happy that both of these are moving along, and hopefully they'll be finalized and official soon.
This is a screenshot of the UISP router GUI as well. Looks quite nice. Looks a lot plainer than the EdgeRouter one, but it looks a lot nicer aesthetically speaking. So it's good that they're getting on with that, and it just means that the go one step further to becoming UISP overtaking EdgeRouter at some point.
Give it a couple more years.
Yeah, I know. But there's and you can, as mentioned, you could also do the remote access thing via USB. So it's like port forwarding kind of thing. I'm not sure how it's working, but the one I was trying with, it was an EdgeRouter X. I'm not sure if it's quite CPU intensive to forward its GUI sort of over NAT, but we'll see if they get it working a bit better than it is now. So.
Yeah, and this was the silly one. I saw this and kind of chuckled, so I chucked it in. But Connect 3.5.6 adds they call it YouTube mode. So Connect, I've never had any of the devices. I've never used it, but I know that they're mostly the little touchscreen things, and I know Cody's had some videos about them. Yeah. But now this allows you to use these big iPad-looking things to display YouTube videos. So I'd assume if you have one in your waiting room, you could have promo videos, and then people could check in with that little tablet. I'm not sure what the use case is. I just love that they added YouTube mode.
Yeah, I've got a UniFi Connect cast on the table to open and review. Haven't played with any UniFi Connect stuff yet, so I'm interested to see what it all does. But there's some other bug fixes in there for the EV station stuff in there. But yeah, it's interesting they got YouTube mode. I'd imagine, like you said, the displays.
That's the other thing. Connect, they tie into that EV charger. So maybe you could have basically. I'm viewing it as like you're a business and you need to have kind of like while someone's not using it, you just kind of have like a background video playing. So it's advertising, hey, you can charge your car here. Or, the pricing. There's probably reasons for it. Yeah. And it's another use case to have Connect.
Yeah, it's quite cool.
YouTube mode.
You can watch the next episode of UI Chat on the UniFi Connect if you want to. So there you go.
There you go.
This next one is WiFiMan Desktop. This is initial support for Windows. And it's got Discovery Tool, it's got Teleport VPN. You've been able to do all those things on macOS before. It's just they've now got it on Windows, so you can do all those various things. You can download the tool there. This sort of goes kind of head-to-head with the Hostify tool that we've got. We've got not the features of the VPN stuff, we've got the Discovery tool and the adopting process. So it's interesting to see how we're developing it alongside what Ubiquiti doing with WiFiMan. But it's interesting to see they've got Windows support now, which is awesome.
Yeah, and that was a long promised thing. So another thing that it's kind of a finally, but also very nice to see. And yeah, it's so WiFiMan. I know it seems to be a few different things. On a phone, it has like the Wi-Fi scanning and like shows your signal strength and throughput. Yep. And then on Windows and macOS, it ties into Teleport VPN. Does it tie into identity as well?
No. So this is like just a consumer version of VPN stuff.
Okay.
So it's got
just
one.
teleport VPN.
Yeah, it's got one-click VPN, but not identity. It's more the consumer stuff, like adoption back to your VPN connection back to UDM if you want to, but it's more just home use and stuff. So
yeah, and the Hostify discovery tool, I've seen a few things about that.
Yeah,
very interesting. I know Riley wanted to do that for a while.
Yeah.
Handy little tool to just, I guess if you're setting up devices or just trying to see what's on the network, check that out.
Yeah, definitely. Got 2 releases for UniFi Network. Got 8026 and 8028. 8026 is there's a beta release that came out December 21st, and then that got released to GA on the 28th of December, so pretty quickly afterwards. And then that fixed one or two things to do with WAN configurations, which is pretty important. And then also 8028 went GA 3 days ago on January 22nd, and that's got a lot of other features in there, which is quite interesting. So yeah, all good.
Yeah, and this is probably the end of the line for 8.0. So I'm or maybe they'll have another bug fix or two. But I'm curious what 8.1 or whatever their next train is, and usually that's when they, move to 10. Why not skip 9? But yeah, I'm assuming we'll start to see more feature releases soon. But yeah, just patching some bugs right now.
Yeah, fantastic. That's all the news we got. We had a lot to get through. Is there anything else? Well, we've got some stuff in the list. There's some stuff we've been working on for our own stuff. So what things have you been working on recently that you want people to check out?
So besides the holidays, I had COVID. I tested positive Christmas night, the evening of the 25th.
Oh, no.
So that was a good week of not really being productive. And then I was on vacation, so I haven't had too much time, but I did finally finish up my UXG Lite review,
nice.
Which I tried to go into an annoying amount of depth on. I do have, I'm kind of still finishing my Express review, and I'll probably have to rework some stuff now that 3.2.5 is out. But then I also did a quick little preview of the U7 Pro. But I know you did the, year in review?
Yeah, so I did it last year as well. I did, basically it's just a big list of all the stuff they released in the year. So there was a lot actually. There's a good chunk of stuff. I think May was probably the biggest month they had. There was, judging by I think probably 8 or 9, 10 different things, all of them products, which is crazy. Basically a big year in review. My take on what I thought of the year. So I like to do it at the end of the year. I started doing it last year, and it's interesting. Yeah,
I checked it out, and it was seeing the list is kind of overwhelming because it's like I forgot about so many of those things. So it was interesting to see it all laid out there. Like they did so much last year, and they've done, even in the last month, they've done so much. So I don't know if they'll ever slow down, and probably the year in review for 2024 is probably going to be even longer, I would assume.
Your UXG Lite review, can you explain this? What's this monkey's paw thing? I did Google it, but I couldn't work out what it was in reference to.
So it's a famous short story that's been readapted. I think I originally saw it on a really old episode of, oh good lord, what's that? The Twilight Zone.
Okay.
But it's an even older short story, and it's been readapted and retold. But it's basically this guy finds this monkey paw, and the monkey's paw is cursed. So it grants him wishes, but it grants them wishes in a way that comes with consequences. So he asks for money, and I think his son dies, and he gets paid from that. So it's like you get what you want, but there's also, some crap that comes along with it. So that's kind of my very silly way of looking at the UXG Lite, where it's like we have been asking for 4 years. We need a new USG. And yes, we got that, but now it's this kind of cut down, low power. It's still a little bit underpowered. So it is what we want, but there's some serious asterisks and downsides. That was just me having fun with trying to come up with a clever title to be unique. But that's also kind of my overall take on it. Is it's great to see. There are flaws. You should be aware of them, and that's kind of what I try to cover in my review.
Fair enough. Yeah, I just thought I'd ask because I couldn't quite work out what it meant. So.
I'm not saying that someone's going to die or it's not that dramatic. It's just I I forget, while I was writing it, that came across somewhere. I think I saw a tweet with it or something, and it's just kind of stuck in my brain of like, oh, that's kind of an interesting way to think about this product, because it's good and bad, and there's a lot there to discuss.
Nice. I also wrote a thing for the host of my blog, so there's a link in the show notes as well. I was basically going over why does Ubiquiti use 24-volt passive PoE. So there's a lot of questions that I see online about why are they using 24-volt passive PoE when you got active PoE used. Basically, the sum up I came with was that Ubiquiti got their start in the WISP world, and passive PoE in the WISP world is and has been very much a main staple of it. The thing I came up with was mainly to do with, I saw a post on the forums ages ago. It was that if you've got a remote tower, the last thing you want is the active PoE part of it to not work and things to go offline. You want things to be powered on primarily. That was the main reason. And also solar setups as well. WISPs use a lot of solar, and solar is in 12 and 24 volts. Those two are passive. If you're trying to upscale to 48 volt, you get a lot of loss. That was the main reasons. And also they have moved away from passive PoE in terms of the UniFi network and those other devices, but there is still some support for it, but mainly it's now on UISP. So if you want to check that out, you can do. I thought it's got an interesting take, and I saw quite a few questions about it in the past, so I thought I'd clear things up for people. So
yeah, good stuff.
Awesome. As always, you can find this podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. For a full description of this show, visit the episode link in the show notes. If anyone has any Ubiquiti-related questions, please email them to info@theinterface.uk, and me and Evan will go through those questions in a future episode if you've got any Ubiquiti-related questions. We also have an ad-free premium version of this show available on Apple Podcasts that will help support this episode and future podcasts we do. Thank you for joining me on this episode of UI Chat, Evan. Where can people find you online if they want to find out more about you and what you do?
evanmccann.net.
evanmccann.net. Awesome. You can find the interface at theinterface.uk. Thanks for listening to this UI Chat podcast episode. If you like what we do, follow the show on all the podcast platforms and on YouTube. Give us a rating. This really helps other people find this show. Once again, thank you, Evan, for joining me. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you again next time.
See ya.